After that, Ed and Lucy then headed to Professor Glass's secret laboratory. He tied himself with a rope and headed to the secret laboratory through the hole that Lucy made. Ed then asked her, why did she bother to come here? Lucy did not answer his question, and asked him back, why did he bother to use a rope like that? They can directly descend along with her magic. After a while, they finally got to the bottom. Ed said that he had to see if he could go up or down by himself. Looking at the artifacts scattered on the floor, Ed said there was no way he could take it all at once. It seemed that he had to come back here several times, but the purpose of Ed's visit this time was not to collect the artifacts scattered on the floor. He then headed to the secret safe that Professor Glass said. After finding it, he did not expect Professor Glass to hide a secret safe in a place like this, but what confused him was, even until the end, he continued to hide the key, but when he finally opened the safe, he then realized he didn't expect him to be hiding something like this. It was already night time. Ed and Lucy then went back upstairs, and again, he didn't ask Lucy for help to get upstairs. Ed felt that maybe it was time to ask Lortel to send the magic engineering materials he requested, but before that, he had to ask her for a ladder first. It would be too much if he always used ropes on his next visit. After climbing for a while, Ed decided to take a short break. If he didn't exercise his stamina, he would have given up by now. While looking at the item that Hajin got from the safe, Lucy then asked, what is it? It is a legendary grade magic engineering, Glass's golden phoenix ring. It can turn the flow of time, can bring the magic power of the future into the present. The difficulty in crafting the item is almost full, which explains how valuable this item is. With this item, he can borrow the magic power of his future self to use now. This means, in theory, he can use high-level magic right now, but using it will make him unable to fight for a long time, proportional to the amount of magic borrowed. If he uses it carelessly, the loss will be great. In the end, if he wants to use it in battle, there is only one way, that is when he is cornered, as an urgent last action. But what if it is not for battle? For example, spirit contract. Janica can command many spirits not only because of her sensitivity but also because she has an abundant amount of magic. For a beginner spirit sorcerer like him, their limit could only have one or two. Even then it took a lot of practice to just talk to a low-level spirit, because they lacked maximum magic power. If he could temporarily increase his maximum magic power, then in theory he could make a contract with a high-level spirit. Of course, it was a fraudulent calculation, and there were risks. After knowing how powerful that item was, Lucy was confused. If he had the time to make something like that, he should have been, but Ed immediately said that it was enough. It was all in the past, but even if they searched the entire library, they won't find anything more precious than this. From the very beginning, the stern professor's actions were driven by clear intentions. That Professor Glass, although often said that supporting talent that is still not convincing is a sin, but behind the scenes, he made items like this. This item can break through the limitations of maximum magic power. That's why Professor Glass researched magic engineering items. He hid them from everyone, kept them to himself until the end. They were all gifts for his daughter. Lucy then called him and said, once, the button on her sleeve came off. This button at the end, she didn't realize that there was a button, but after it was gone, her sleeves became too loose and uncomfortable. She was uncomfortable for a long time. Hearing that, Ed asked, is that right? Lucy continued, after something is gone, they often only realize how important it is. Something that seems trivial is actually very important. She followed him because she wanted to ask something. Does he want to move to Dex Hall? Does he have to go? Ed knew it was a difficult sentence for Lucy to say, but his heart remained neutral. Whether he went to the Dex Hall or continued to live in the cabin, while breathing heavily from fatigue, Ed said that going to the Dex Hall would definitely be more comfortable. Living in the wild this winter was crazy. Lucy also realized that, as she closed her eyes for a moment, she wondered, will it rain? Lucy has an unusual ability to be able to feel the time of rain, by looking at the dark clouds in the sky and the moisture in her nose, but, Ed replied no. There is no rule that says that she is always right. Ed said that it's not time yet. Hearing that, they then both looked up at the sky. We can't always be sure that what comes down from the sky is just heavy rain, but, after going through a prolonged rainy season, we start to think it's going to rain, even though the season has already passed. Ed then called Lucy and said, He's been so busy lately that he hasn't collected enough firewood for this winter. He can't take care of everything himself. So he asked her to help him if she has time. She said it herself. They ran out of firewood, but before Ed finished his words, Lucy suddenly hugged him. The pleasure covering her heart could not be described in words at this moment. Accompanied by the snow falling from the sky, Lucy repeatedly asked if he was serious. Ed sighed for a moment. He said that he had fully adapted to the camping life. So if they increased the atmosphere of the environment a little, it's actually better to settle down and stay here. But Ed then fell silent. Lucy hugged him tighter. Act 2 ended like this. Now Act 3 began, where the difficulty scale of the obstacles increased rapidly, as he closed his eyes. Many thoughts flooded his head. The dispute between Princess Phinia and Lortel, competing for the position of student council president, important characters and new enemies entering the academy as new batch students, and the figure standing at the end of this act, the final boss of Act 3, Lucy Merrill. Ed paused for a moment thinking about it. It would not be an easy task, but he put aside his anxiety for now. Even after the next episode ended, surely, the two of them would still be alive and well. Seeing Lucy's expression, which he had never seen in any scene or route, he felt that certainty. Winter came. Ed then cleaned up the snow that had accumulated around his cabin. It felt good when it snowed, but the accumulation of snow meant more work. After clearing everything, the sun was already high in the sky. It had been a long time since he set a ban on overworking just because there was a lot to take care of, but since he would be called tomorrow for his scholarship assignment, he decided to finish the work that had accumulated today. He needed to organize firewood and food. Thanks to the cold weather, the food didn't spoil easily, so he was able to finish his food preparation quickly. He exchanged the dormitory allowance in exchange for the learning allowance, so the academic problem was more or less resolved. Unlike in the beginning, he now no longer needs to divide his day into hours by hours, but that doesn't mean he can sleep like this either. But he also doesn't want to drive Lucy out, even though she, who is wrapped in protection magic, still won't be cold, but it's a matter of keeping feelings. When Ed exhales, cold steam immediately comes out of his mouth, a calmness that could come at any time. If he had to take a risk, this was the time. With Glast's golden phoenix ring in his hand, he then began his test. He asked, "Are you here, Marilda?"